Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to yet another God of War video. With us having focused so heavily on Ragnarok and breaking its cycle, let's actually talk about the very being that made this all possible, spawning the 9 realms and many other deities from his being, the elder giant of creation, Ymir. To fully understand his origins, we must first go to the dawn of time to truly understand how he came to be and what makes him so unique alongside other beings like Surtr and Odin. Because I guarantee you, most people that have heard of Ymir's name is typically in passing, so to some, you may actually not know the grandfather of the giants. And also know, it's nothing like the Attack on Titan counterpart, although there is most certainly some influence from Norse mythology in that character's own background. But before we do begin, as always everyone, I would super appreciate it if we could first get this video to about 500 likes. It's a great way of not only supporting this video, but this channel out as a whole. It really does go a long way here. And if you like what we do here and want to see more, please do not forget to subscribe, as well as tick that bell to stay up to date with everything we do here. So without any further ado, let's begin, shall we? Now, for us to talk about Ymir, we actually have to go back to the furthest point in time in Norse mythology, the Void, or most commonly referred to in its texts, Gnungagap. God, is that a tongue twister? Here, time and reality do not truly exist. It is empty and cold. Only the chances of possibility and probability do exist. So, by chance or fate, the root of the universe would spring forth the world tree, Yggdrasil. As the tree would begin to flourish, 2 realms would begin to form and slowly come into existence. This was Muspelheim, the world of fire and brimstone, and Niflheim, a land cast to the freezing winds of the world tree. As these realms formed, froze, and burned away at each other, Ymir would be born, being given form and shape from a mix of the frozen icelands of Niflheim and the scorching fires of Muspelheim. This would give life to the progenitor of all others, Ymir, the very first giant. Now, because of his unique and somewhat unnatural creation, in Norse texts, Ymir is actually seen as the living and breathing embodiment of chaos, a child of the emptiness of the void. So this is why he is treated as a monster, as it does rival what the gods represent: law, order, and honor. Now, Ymir roamed across the lands aimlessly, seeking both purpose and nourishment. And he did find this in another being, Adombla, the primordial cow. Fun fact, you can actually see it on the Jotnar edition cloth mat. Now, this fellow primordial was born not too long after Ymir had taken shape, and the great cow would be a food source for Ymir as he fed on its udder. And as this happened, other life would begin to come forth. Now, I will say, please do bear with me, because this is where Norse mythology does get a little bit weird. As Ymir rested, the sweat that came off him from the heat of Muspelheim would begin to take shape. This would be the fire giant Surtr, a direct descendant of Ymir and the first of his bloodline. But he would not be the only child, as not long after this, his feet would also give life to the very first age of giants. So this is how the Jotuns came to be. Told you it was a little bit weird. So yes, this is why Ymir is seen in many ways as the father of all creation, as it was his very being that gave birth to the giants. But what of the gods? Well, whilst Ymir did this, Adombla went in the opposite direction, as after Ymir fed on the cow, it would begin to lick on a salt stone. So on the surface, it seemed like nothing, but really, what had actually happened is that the primordial cow had given life to that of the stone. It took 3 days and 3 nights, but eventually, the stone was given shape and life. And so was born the very first god, Buri. But it was not he that would be of great significance in Norse mythology. Instead, it would be that of his kin, and later on their kin, as Buri himself is the grandfather of Odin. But here is where the twist comes in this tale and narrative. Despite what would later be their greatest enemies, once Buri was given shape and form, he would go on to sire a child with the likes of an unknown giantess of Ymir's line. So, the Odinson bloodline is indeed tied to that of the giants. This giantess would then go on to give birth to the likes of Bor, who, much like his father, would go on to have children with another giantess. And their spawn would be the strongest of their clan, being the trio that would usher in a new age for that of Norse mythology. It was Odin, Vili, and Vi. These gods were the most ferocious of their bloodline, truly embodying that warrior spirit and wearing it with pride. So much so that in time, after learning to harness their own strength and power, they would go on to challenge the mighty Ymir. This was a large titanic battle, one that shaped the very foundation of Muspelheim and Niflheim. But eventually, Odin's spear was able to gut Ymir, and the gods simply proved to be too much for him. So the primordial giants would fall to the ground, stone cold and dead. But it was not over yet, as when he died, his blood and life force would drown the realms in a crimson red, murdering all of the giants, minus Surtr and 2 others. Having known his ability to spring forth life, would harvest the remains of the dead giants, with his bones being used as stone, his flesh as dirt, his blood as water, and his skull as their beloved Asgard. Here, the other 7 realms would be given shape, and from the remains of his dying carcass is where the lives of all others would begin. And so does end the tragic tale of Ymir in the tale of Norse mythology. Now, on the god of war side of things, not much has really changed, as the tragedy of Ymir is still felt throughout the world and lands. And with the Aesir being framed in more of a villainous light, it's hard not to sympathize with the giant, as the only remaining descendants of his bloodline are few and very far between. Whilst I've actually always known about Ymir's death, I've never actually explored it in this greater detail and realized just how absolutely brutal his end is. Ymir is effectively killed, gutted, and harvested for his very being. He's used as stones and bricks to build other worlds. So, game or Norse mythology, this is a pretty fucked up way to go out, and it most certainly does make the Aesir look like monsters. With that said, I am interested to see just how much of an influence something like this may actually come into play in God of War Ragnarok. Because whilst Ymir may be gone, his counterpart, the Primordial Cow, can still be found in Niflheim, even if he is a bunch of bones at this point. Thank you, Cloth Map. But I will say, I am interested to see if the cow's remains may be an important plot point in Ragnarok itself, as the corpse itself is one of the few remaining things from the dawn of creation. So now, I leave you all with a question here today. Do you think we will see Ymir's influence play a part in the next game? Or do you believe Undumbla may be a key to answer some questions? Like, let's say, the Jotnar ability of foresight, or maybe even that of time travel. Please do comment down below, as I would love to hear what you all have to say. But for now everyone, this has been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting, as Ragnarok comes for us all. Take care everyone, I'll see you soon.